Tucked away in the northwest corner of Massachusetts, nestled right near the Vermont and New York state lines, the town of Adams, Massachusetts, has a surprisingly rich and colorful history. With ties to luminaries such as President William McKinley and Susan B. Anthony, this former mill town has changed a lot over the years. Connecting Point producer Tony Dunne takes us exploring this quintessentially American community in the shadows of Mount Greylock.
Adams is a small town. I would easily say now 80% of the people who live here were born here. So that makes them sort of suspicious of outsiders, but it also makes them a very close-knit community. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody's families are interconnected here. Also, it's somewhat of a diverse community in that everybody has a heritage of a different ethnic group. There's probably maybe 5 or 6 ethnic groups in this town that everybody's part of. Settlers started coming here 150 years after the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. The first people to come were Quakers and Baptists from Dartmouth, Massachusetts and Smithfield, Rhode Island. The Quakers, they didn't smoke, they didn't dance, they didn't drink, but they did believe that women should have equal rights. And one of the people that was born in this community was Susan B. Anthony, who devoted her whole life to getting human rights for women. She was very deeply connected to the community here. Her birthplace was on East Road, and it's a museum open on weekends. Now, she brought democracy to half the population without firing one shot, one gun, or killing a bunch of young men. And for someone, a freedom fighter, that's a pretty good record. You know, after the railroad got here, something like 5 mills were built in 7 years. And the railroad also brought in the immigrant workforce. The first immigrants to get here were, of course, the Irish. The next group that came here were Scots, who came just before and after the Civil War to produce ginghams and plaids in the textile mills. And then French Canadians, Quebecois, and the German weavers came. Polish teenagers came to work in the mills. Also, there was Italian families who moved into this town. So by around World War I would say there were 5 languages preached from the pulpits in the church here. In the 1890s, the Plunkett brothers built 4 large mills in Adams, and that brought in probably another thousands of people to work here, and also brought in economic activity, which encouraged a commercial district to be built. The Plunketts befriended President McKinley probably when he was in Congress, and he wrote the McKinley Tariff, which basically kept foreign goods more expensive than goods produced in the United States. And he came to visit here once as governor of Ohio, and then twice as the president of the United States. I think he came here as president of the United States to see his economic plan and work, to see how his tariffs had made this small town prosper. He was assassinated in 1901, and within 2 years, the Plunketts had erected a statue here in the center of town and in front of the library, which he actually laid the cornerstone of when he was here on his first visit. Because of economics and the fact that cotton could be woven cheaper in the South than here, most of the cotton mills were closing down in the Northeast and moving to the South. To the north of us, there was electronics in North Adams, and to the south of us was power transformers and defense contracts at the General Electric in Pittsfield. So Adams was slowly losing population and losing jobs. Our population is now 1/3 of what it was at its peak of 13,000 in 1915. It's amazing how at the turn of the century so many Europeans were allowed to come to this country and form whole brand new communities. So Adams definitely follows that whole same historical progress that went on throughout all of New England and the Northeast. I think local history is important because I think everybody should have a sense of where they came from, and people should realize that we're custodians of this land and the buildings here, and that we should preserve them for the next generation and generations to come.